Let's take a look at what is RGB and what is CMYK. You might have come across this and you might have not. It is kind of essential, but to understand the basics. So let's start it with a new document. I'm going to click on Create New. Here you have given the option to pick RGB or CMYK. If I go to Print, I pick one of the defaults and it's going to let's say if this is hidden, you have to click on this and it will show CMYK color within the advanced option. By default it is going to be CMYK. Let's say if I go to web or film and video, pretty much other ones, I pick one of these, then it's by default going to be RGB. So RGB color is red, green and blue. Basically those are the colors used for screens to display color. So the laptop in front of you right now uses a mixes of red, green and blue to generate the colors that we see. And we know that if we use a printer, then we need to have a CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, krypton. That is the CMYK color mode. The big difference between RGB and CMYK is that RGB has light or luminance. Has light coming out of screen. It allows it to generate more colors than CMYK can. If you have seen a printed image, after comparing it with the screen, the print will look comparatively a bit washed out because the screen has light coming off it, and whereas printers, the paper from your printer has no luminance value. So, and also it is a different kind of color mode. RGB has a bigger gamut of color and CMYK has a smaller one. Basically, RGB as a rule is probably one of the best one to use for the everything at the moment, especially if you're going to use something that's going out via email or via website. If it's going to print, it's probably going to be a dual use. So many things are these days you're probably going to want to use for both, to be for your website to be downloaded and to be going to the commercial print. If it's something you're creating like a postcard that's going to be commercial print only, then you might want to consider CMYK. But in that case as well, modern printers can work with RGB. They have got some good conversion methods of understanding the RGB to CMYK. I often use RGB. It's going to be ensured just use RGB. If you're a little bit more professional, you probably know this already. Then you can use CMYK. Let's have a small look between the differences in two. I'm going to go ahead and open a file here. Say this one, print web, and this one. Okay. So I'm going to make a few objects here. And take a color with the swatches. This. Remove the stroke. Alt and drag. Control D. And there I have my different color strips. Now I'm going to change the colors like so. Choose the fill and then change the colors. Go to this. Say green one. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in a bit, and here you can see this is RGB/preview. This shows that this is an RGB document. Now I can also change it. I can go to File, Document Setup, Document Color Mode, and CMYK Color. If you notice, there is a little bit of change when I change it to CMYK, and you can see, and it has also changed to CMYK as well. So the colors become a dull a bit. They lose kind of a saturation and the luminance value. In case you're sure that your design is going for print, then you should make it in RGB. You should be making it in CMYK and not in RGB. I often use dual things. I use all sorts of things. I start in RGB and then send it printed to RGB, because some printers do have really good ways to convert it into CMYK and restoring the original colors. That gives you a little bit of understanding of CMYK and RGB. So use RGB and send it around. If it works fine, then it's okay. It works on digital and works good for printing to local kind of printers. So, but you need to know the difference between the two. Some printers will demand CMYK, and that's fine. That's the way they work. So just make sure you're working in CMYK. You might have to make two versions of the document, one in RGB for digital and another one in CMYK.